In the soft glow of dawn, along the Tigris and Euphrates, life in ancient Mesopotamia began with gentle routines that shaped the world's very first cities. Tonight, you'll wander through quiet clay homes, follow the pace of early farmers and merchants, and listen to the rhythms that carried an ordinary day thousands of years ago. Let the calm details unfold slowly, guiding you toward rest. You begin your night's journey along the fertile plain where the Tigris and Euphrates spread like long, gentle arms through the landscape. The air is still cool, the kind of early morning calm that invites an unhurried pace. Ancient Mesopotamia awakens gradually, never in a rush. In the faint light, you can make out the silhouette of mud brick homes, each one shaped by hand, smoothed by years of wind and sun. These houses are simple, square, and warmly familiar, as if they belong not just to the people who lived here thousands of years ago, but to anyone who has ever sought shelter and routine. Families begin their day quietly. A small oil lamp flickers awake inside a single-room home, casting a soft glow over woven reed mats. A woman moves slowly, grinding grain with a stone, the rhythmic motion steady and calming. She works without hurry, as if the morning itself is patient enough to wait. Mesopotamian mornings belonged to preparation. Bakers shaped dough from barley and emmer wheat, pressing it carefully against the inside walls of clay ovens. Farmers stepped into the fields to check the canals that carried life-giving water. Even these earliest irrigation systems, lined with clay and reeds, were tended daily with mindfulness. Water, after all, was the source of everything here: food, trade, stability, and life. The narrow streets begin filling with soft footsteps. Merchants arrange clay jars, bowls, and reed baskets outside their stalls. A potter carries a fresh stack of bowls, each one made on a slow-turning wheel. Their surface is still a little cool, still scented faintly of the earth from which they were shaped. There are no loud moments here, just steady rhythms. A shepherd leads a cluster of goats through a side path, their quiet bleats echoing lightly between the walls. A child runs past, brushing dust into the warm air. A scribe, wrapped in a simple wool garment, heads toward the temple school where clay tablets wait for fresh impressions of cuneiform signs. It moved like the river, steady, predictable, and deeply patterned. People rose early because the sun, once fully awake, grew warm quickly. Work was done methodically in soft cycles that repeated day after day. As you walk through these early streets, in your mind, allow yourself to feel their rhythm, a world built not on haste, but on quiet persistence. The morning settles fully over the city now, spreading light across rooftops and courtyards. You follow a gentle breeze as it drifts between mud brick walls, carrying with it the soft scent of damp clay, baked bread, and the river beyond. Life in ancient Mesopotamia continues to unfold at a deliberate, steady pace, never restless. As you move through the town, you begin to notice how carefully organized everything is. Even thousands of years ago, people here believed that order brought harmony. Streets connected homes to markets, markets to workshops, and workshops to temples. Nothing was left to chaos. The world itself, in their eyes, had been shaped from disorder into structure, and their cities echoed that belief. You pass a courtyard where several families gather. Homes were often built around these open spaces where light could enter and people could work in the cool shade. A woman kneels beside a low table, shaping small clay figures, perhaps offerings. Beside her, a child smooths wet clay with surprising precision, mimicking the patient movements of adults. Inside another home, a man repairs a fishing net. Mesopotamians living near rivers relied heavily on fish, and the sound of nets being untangled or woven was part of the everyday rhythm. He works quietly, his hands practiced, his motions slow enough to be almost meditative. Just beyond this cluster of homes, you find the heart of early urban life, the market. Here, the soft hum of conversation drifts like a gentle current. No shouting, no frantic exchanges, just the steady flow of neighbors greeting one another as they inspect baskets of barley, bunches of dates, freshly formed pottery, and aromatic herbs gathered from riverbanks. A merchant lifts a clay jug and taps it lightly to show its sturdiness. Another weighs grain with a small balance scale, moving the counterweights with thoughtful care. A pair of women examines a length of woven wool, running their fingers across the rough but reliable texture. Even in commerce, the pace is unhurried. Barter was common, and negotiation wasn't a competition, it was a conversation. A cowrie shell here, a handful of grain there, a promise to return later with a tool or jar. Goods flowed the way water did, predictably and in tune with the needs of the community. Beyond the market, you hear the steady tapping of a potter shaping clay on a turning wheel. The wheel doesn't spin fast. It rotates slowly, almost hypnotically, as the potter's hands rise and fall with the form. Pottery wasn't just practically, was a reflection of the land itself. Every bowl, every jar carried the imprint of the riverbanks from which the clay was taken. Next to the potter's workshop is the home of a scribe. Inside, the air is noticeably cooler, shaded by thick walls and a narrow doorway. The scribe sits on a low stool, stylus in hand, leaning over a fresh tablet. With each gentle press, he forms wedge-shaped marks that represent sounds, numbers, and ideas. Cuneiform was precise, methodical, and deeply respected. Scribes weren't hurried. Wisdom wasn't measured by speed, but by clarity. For a moment, imagine the soft, scratching sound of a stylus against clay. It's subtle enough to blend into the stillness around you, but steady enough to anchor your attention. In a world where memory lived in fragile human minds, writing felt like a small miracle, something worth taking slowly. You step back out into the warm air, and the day continues its calm progression. People move from task to task with a sense of grounded purpose, untouched by the urgency that defines modern life. Their world moved in predictable cycles. Sunrise, work, gathering, rest. As midday approaches, the heat deepens and the streets begin to quiet. By midday, the sun hangs high above the flat rooftops, warming the streets and softening the edges of every mud brick wall. In ancient Mesopotamia, the middle of the day invited a slower rhythm. People naturally drifted toward cooler spaces, shaded courtyards, shaded doorways, or the gentle breeze near the river. You follow a narrow path that leads toward the water. The sounds here are peaceful. The faint lapping of the river, the rustle of tall reeds, the distant call of a heron gliding low. A fisherman stands knee-deep in the shallows, casting a simple net with slow, practiced motions. His movements create gentle ripples that widen on the surface before disappearing into the soft flow of the river. A few steps away, families wash clothes along the bank. They work steadily, chatting quietly as they rinse cloth in the cool water and lay it across smooth stones to dry in the sun. The colors are muted earthy browns, faded blues, the natural tones of plants and minerals used for dyes. Everything here blends softly into the landscape. Closer to the city, a group of farmers takes a break beneath a reed shelter. They sit in the shade, sharing flatbread and dates, their conversation low and unhurried. Before long, they'll return to the fields, where carefully dug canals guide water into crops of barley, lentils, flax, and vegetables. Farming in Mesopotamia was steady work, more about patience than intensity. The fields depended on the river's seasonal floods, and people learned long ago to watch the water, measure its flow, and adapt gently to its changes. Walking back toward the city center, you come upon a weaving workshop. The rhythmic clacking of wooden looms fills the air. Women sit at simple, vertical frames, guiding threads with deliberate movements. Mesopotamian textiles were prized for their durability, and weaving, like so many other daily tasks, was done with a sense of quiet concentration. The room is cool and dim, with sunlight filtering in through a small window and lighting the floating dust in soft, golden ribbons. Nearby, two men shape tools from bronze. The metal cools slowly on a stone slab, releasing a faint, warm scent. The craftsmen speak only when necessary, preserving the focus that such delicate work demands. Bronze tools were precious, not because they were rare, but because they were the result of practice, knowledge, and careful attention. You continue onward until you reach the temple complex, the ziggurat rising gently above the city. Even from a distance, the structure feels peaceful rather than imposing. Its tiers are broad and steady, like layers of earth reaching upward. The temple courtyard below is active in a calm, orderly way. Priests move deliberately, carrying baskets of offerings, lighting small oil lamps, or recording temple accounts on clay tablets. People come here throughout the day to leave small gifts: a handful of barley, a clay figurine, a simple prayer spoken softly at the base of the structure. Temples in Mesopotamia weren't only places of worship. They were centers of community, record-keeping, education, and stability. In a world shaped by rivers and seasons, the temple offered a sense of continuity, a steady presence that anchored everyday life. As you walk around the courtyard, you notice a young student sitting cross-legged, practicing cuneiform signs on a small tablet. The strokes are uneven but earnest. Teacher, patient and calm, sits behind him, offering occasional guidance. Learning to write took years, and those who pursued it embraced the slow, rewarding discipline of repetition. A breeze passes through the courtyard, stirring dust at your feet. Bells made from bronze or clay chime faintly as they sway on a nearby doorway. The midday heat lingers, but the world feels still and untroubled. Everything around you continues at the same pace, steady, grounded, and gentle. As the afternoon stretches onward, the sun begins its slow descent, softening its light across the rooftops and streets. The heat eases, and with it, the city gently stirs back to life. Shadows lengthen across the ground, creating quiet pockets of coolness where people pause to rest or chat with neighbors. You wander toward a residential lane lined with modest mud brick homes. Here, everyday domestic life continues at an easy pace. A woman kneels beside a low hearth, tending to a small pot of stew. The aroma drifts outward, a mixture of lentils, herbs, and the faint smokiness of an open fire. Meals in ancient Mesopotamia were simple, wholesome, and comforting, built from what the land and rivers offered. Inside one of the homes, two children sit on the floor, playing a game with small stones. They arrange them into patterns, laugh softly, then rearrange them again. Games were not elaborate. They didn't need to be. Their purpose was simple joy, the kind that comes naturally in moments of stillness. Their mother glances at them while weaving a small basket, the fibers slipping between her fingers with gentle ease. In the courtyard next door, a man repairs the wooden frame of his home. He works at a measured pace, tapping each piece into place with careful, deliberate motions. In a world where tools were precious and materials came from nearby reeds, timber, clay, and straw, nothing was wasted. Everything could be mended, reshaped, or reused. As you continue walking, you find a group of elders seated on reed mats beneath an awning. They're engaged in soft conversations, sharing memories, exchanging news, or discussing matters of the neighborhood. Elders held a respected place in Mesopotamian communities, their experience valued as a steady guide in everyday decisions. Their voices blend with the warm breeze, becoming part of the afternoon's gentle soundtrack. A few steps farther, you pass a small bakery where a man sweeps ash from the base of a clay oven. Earlier in the day, he baked flatbreads for the neighborhood, some to trade and some to share. Even now, the walls of the bakery give off a faint heat, carrying the soft scent of baked grain. Bread was a staple, hurrah, daily anchor, familiar and nourishing. Near the edge of the market, you notice a woman arranging jars of oil and honey. The jars are sealed with clay stoppers, each one marked with a simple symbol showing the contents. Labeling and record-keeping were everyday parts of life, woven into the routines of trade and storage. The woman hums softly as she works, her voice blending with the distant clack of weaving looms. Behind her stall, a narrow alley leads to a schoolroom. Inside, young students sit on low benches, each holding a small clay tablet. Their teacher speaks slowly, guiding them through lists of signs, numbers, simple phrases. The students repeat the shapes over and over, learning. Like everything else here happens through calm repetition, one careful line at a time. The late afternoon continues with this comforting cadence. People move unhurriedly between tasks. Families prepare their evening meal. Farmers return from the fields. Merchants pack their goods into baskets and jars. The entire city seems to inhale and exhale in one long, peaceful rhythm. As the air cools, lamps begin to glow behind doorways, little pockets of warmth against the approaching dusk. Light flickers on the walls, dances across clay surfaces, and signals the gentle shift from the workday into evening. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is loud. The day winds down with the same steadiness it began. Evening settles over ancient Mesopotamia like a soft blanket, cooling the air and calming the last movements of the day. The sky shifts from warm gold to deep blue, and the first stars appear above the rooftops. With the fading light, the city grows quieter, its sounds softening to a gentle murmur. You walk slowly along a narrow lane where families gather for their evening meal. People eat without hurry, savoring the quiet moments that come after a day of steady work. Conversations drift in low, warm tones.